James and the Coaches, the 8th episode of the first series, is based on the stories James and the Top Hat and James and the Bootlace from the Railway series book James the Red Engine. This was the second time the TV series crew decided to put 2 stories into one episode, and the results really did pay off in my opinion. James is settling into his new life on the island of Sodor quite nicely. The Fat Controller tells him that he can take coaches and trucks easily, but must learn from his mistakes. Remembering a nasty accident with the trucks on his first day, James knows just what he means by that. James's first job of the day is to take a passenger train with Edward, who warns him not to bump the coaches. People have arrived on the platform to admire James, who gets overexcited and lets off steam without warning, causing a shower of water to fall on the Fat Controller's brand new top hat. It is time for the train to leave and James tries to get out as fast as he can, which bothers Edward and the coaches. This causes trouble at the first station when James causes 2 of the coaches to run beyond the platform, forcing the train to reverse to let passengers off. However, it seems that no one knows what happened to the Fat Controller, to James's relief. Next, James and Edward stop at the junction on Thomas's new branch line where the tank engine greets them before leaving. The train later passes the field from James's accident, which is now cleared up. Finally, the journey ends, and after unloading the passengers, the 2 engines start home, with James still wondering what the Fat Controller would have to say about his top hat. The next morning, the Fat Controller visits James at the shed and threatens to have him painted blue if he misbehaves. James hates the idea of losing his red coat. However, rather than calming down, he gets very angry and takes it out on the coaches when bringing them to the station. He grumbles about having to fetch his own coaches, unlike Gordon. To make matters worse for James, none of the passengers dare go near him. James pulls the coaches very roughly and runs too fast for comfort, causing the coaches to force him to stop. The driver determines that James's rough treatment has caused a leak in a coach's brake pipe, and his only recommendation is patching up the leak with newspaper and a leather bootlace. Since none of the crew have a bootlace, the guard proceeds to ask each of the passengers and at last finds a man with a leather bootlace, who refuses to give it up. The guard explains that the train cannot continue without the repair, making the other passengers very cross at both the railway and the man. Under pressure, the man relents and hands over his laces. The damage is temporarily repaired, and James, knowing that he is going to be in more trouble with the Fat Controller, carefully proceeds on his way and makes sure never to bump coaches again. This episode may have been the second time we'd seen James properly, but it's the first time we get to see some of his character development. He comes across as an engine who's willing to please the Fat Controller and learn from his mistakes, but he's also quite vain, as was shown when the passengers were admiring him. And he's been proven to be quite short-tempered at the idea of having his red coat taken away and being painted blue, or anything else he doesn't like. And he's another one of those characters who ends up learning his lesson the hard way. And the events of the episode were referenced in the 22nd series episode, An Engine of Many Colours. But we're here to talk about good episodes, aren't we? And there's a really nice reference to Ringo Starr in this episode, mainly in the guard from James's passenger train near the end of the episode. He has a beard that strongly resembles Ringo Starr's beard. It's as if the crew really wanted to make a reference to Ringo Starr within the TV series, and I just love that little detail that they put in there. And I know I've praised Michael Donnell and Junior Campbell countless times for their music in the Thomascember, but I absolutely adore James's theme in the episode. It's like this really cool jazzy type music. It's as if Mike and Junior were inspired by jazz music and decided to listen to it for inspiration for James's theme. And that's just a really nice touch in my opinion, giving something new to the music that we haven't heard before until this episode. And a huge thumbs up to Mike and Junior for that little detail. James and the Coaches is the start of James's saga for the first series, and I highly recommend putting it on if you really love this episode and haven't seen it for ages. And over the years, James has become one of my favourite characters because of his personality, and we'll get to see more of it in the next episode. So if you're curious to see what happens to James, then tune in to Thomascember tomorrow.